Welcome to the Exhaust Notes Podcast.
What is good, everyone? Welcome to the Exhaust Notes Formula One Podcast, your new favorite Formula One podcast, your favorite Formula One podcaster's favorite Formula One podcast, something F1 podcast as well. You know, F1, Formula One. Anyway.
Friendship won.
Yes, exactly.
Because every time we talk, friendship wins, guys. That's how I like to think of Formula One podcasts.
My name's Nick. I'm with my guys, Rohit and Todd, a.k.a. Only Funds. I don't get it.
I don't. So I recorded a podcast previously on this that had a much different name listed, and when I was getting into the brain mode of the Exhaust Notes podcast, I was like, "Oh, I'm about to be on with the Only Puns master." So Only Fun is what came out of my brain.
I
Perfect.
thought you were an aquatic aficionado that also had a touch of dyslexia, and I didn't want you to be shamed about both of your loves, which are
Fun. Yes.
Oh, my God. We are off to a great start. We're going to talk about... Honestly, this is going to be one of those off-the-rails episodes anyway.
Hey.
So prepare yourself, lock in. We're going to maybe try to keep it shorter than our normal episodes, but we're just going all in with summer hot takes.
with cool dudes.
With cool dudes.
You've been wanting it. Dare I say, you've been demanding it. And we've been apathetic to your demands, but we finally came to that special spot in the summer where we have no content. We're all giddy off the Olympic basketball gold, because God knows when we're going to see gold from a Formula One perspective anytime soon. So we're excited. And you know what? I've got OnlyFans. I've got Nick. And all I need now, listener, is you. Just sit back, pop an edible of choice, and let us get weird.
Okay, I have a tangent to start, because we always talk about like hundredths and thousandths and tenths of a second on this podcast, and you just mentioned the Olympics, Ro. I saw a stat today, and I have no idea if it's true. I have not fact-checked this at all, but they were talking about the difference in the time from for the 100 meters men's track and field from 100 years ago to now. Do you guys already know what I'm talking about?
No, I do not.
No.
Okay, give me a guess of what you think 100 years ago the 100 meter men's race winning time was.
I'm going like 13 or 14 seconds.
I'm going to go with 21, because what can you do for me, 21?
21.
21. Have you done something for me? But
21.
21. What do you think? What is it, Todd?
10.6 seconds, 10.7 seconds, something like that.
Sure.
So in 100 years, all that technology, the track surface changed, the melanin got much more increased in the speed, like everything has changed across the board in track and field. And I think Noah Lyles won this year's Olympics with a 9.7, 9.8, something like that.
Yeah.
So like less than a second difference in 100 years.
Now do
so all those fancy shoes aren't doing shit for anyone, basically, is what you're telling me.
They actually showed a picture of the track spikes they had from 100 years ago, and they were basically like railroad spikes glued to the bottom of a shoe.
Yeah.
Hey, man, luckily for us, neither of us are on a sneaker-themed podcast that goes over the history of anything footwear-related.
It's weird that I feel like I thought I knew somebody that did.
It was Mike Guillory, noted San Antonio Spur aficionado, Michael Josephine Guillory.
You know what's crazy is we don't get to cheer on Americans in the sport of Formula One hardly at all. So I'm going to expand on this conversation around the USA men's basketball and the 100-meter win, and also say that we won today alone. We won the women's football, women's soccer gold.
Footy.
And what did we do? We won both the men's and women's
4x400
400-meter relays this year.
It was really funny. My mom has been the unofficial medal checker of the family, and she's just constantly texting us like, "Hey, we've got the most we've got the most overall, but we're still behind China in gold." And it's getting to the point now where I'm like, "Can can you not say this around any of my friends that are even remotely of Asian descent? Because the way you talk about it, I just want to make sure, like, we love everybody. She goes, no, it's the Olympics. We're supposed to compete against the world. I'm like, okay, just making sure we keep it that way.
It has been cool to see. Although, I'll take this a little bit of a tangent. NBC should not be allowed to show the Olympics ever again, because if you go through the apps to use things, you don't get to see any of the like before or after of anything. It's like or it'll be like one thing. So you're like, I tried to watch the replay of the 100-meter, and I had to scroll through 3 hours of footage to get to 60 seconds of a race, of like build up and race.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you find the actual clip, if you're lucky enough to find the actual clip you want to watch, it ends abruptly and there's no commentary after it. So you don't, like, if you didn't see who finished second, third, and fourth, like in that moment, you got to go look it up someplace else. So that's my only complaint about the Olympics this year.
Was that just a bit of an F1 TV rant coming out of you?
It might have been. Did I say Olympics or F1 TV?
Did he say Olympics?
No. You sounded like me bitching about the broadcast. Yeah. I want to double down on that. Whoever produced or whatever directed the breakdancing segments for NBC needs to be fired worse than F1 TV, because all you got to do is put the camera on them and leave it there. They don't need to like pan and zoom and shake around. They're going to do the entertainment for you. That's like giving somebody, like a cameraman in F1, covering a corner and then not giving him a tripod. He has to just run around with the camera.
They wanted to recreate that 1980s Brooklyn Bronx feel, okay?
Oh, God. I know, we're not even talking about F1. We're tying it in, though.
No, that's what we do. It is a tangent-based podcast that occasionally touches on Formula One matters. I like the fact that, not Formula One because they're not in the Olympics, do better, IOC. I like the fact that breakdancing has replaced whatever your favorite, I would say dressage as the most memeable sport going forward. Because I think we're all about to see, for the next 10 years, that woman doing this on the ground. And be like,
from Austria?
Yeah, from Australia.
No, Australia.
Yeah.
Australia.
And then the caption is going to be like, when the gushers start hitting. Or mom made pizza rolls again.
I've already seen so many memes of that. I'm already tired of it.
Yep.
I feel bad for that chick.
Did she win a medal for that or no?
No.
All the commentary I saw on it was basically like, how did this person even
Did somebody equate her to culturally being the proverbial raisins in the potato salad in terms of bastardizing? And
it turns out she has a doctorate in cultural movements or something to that effect.
Really?
Really?
Interesting.
Because based on what you've told me, the culture has told her to stop moving.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good line. No, I feel bad. She's getting mocked incessantly online. But what I don't feel bad about is the hot takes that are about to spew out of your mouths. And
we've got some, I won't call them rules. Let's just call them rules, but let's just...
Considerations.
Caveat the term rules with the saying of rules are meant to be broken. So, Rohit, what was it that you were saying we were going to have these rules for this?
Initially, the call-out listener was we wanted to do about 3 to 4 hot takes each, and my caveat or my condition was one has to pertain to next season and beyond. And
I think you said 2026 and beyond.
No, 2026, and we're really letting you in behind the curtain, listener. We also wanted to do another episode, which, if you're lucky, you may hear it, around what we think let's say the top 4 teams will look like in 2026 at the start of the season. Like, we can account for all the driver movement. We can account for all the technological changes that Todd will share with us in the Only Funds corner of that podcast. But that, I think, are, lack of a better term, 2 unrelated things that can be bridged by us in the way we only know how, which is awkward, controversial, nonsensical, goofy-ass hot takes.
Yes.
I like that hushed whisper. Like, it was a nice, like,
That's
Terry
what we
Gross.
did.
Welcome to This American Road Life.
Fresh air.
Fresh.
Hello.
Hi. I'm Lakshmi Singh.
The funny part about that is we're kind of poking fun at NPR, but then we're admitting that all of us regularly listen to NPR too. So
I donate once a year.
hey, I was on an NPR podcast once, so
Hey, let's make
I
it
just
210.
listen to the Tiny Desk concerts, and that's pretty much it.
Speaking of, the Locks killed it.
So did Run the Jewels. Go
Oh yeah,
watch that
everybody.
one.
Yeah.
So good.
Do you guys want me to start? I've
Yeah,
got
go.
one.
Fire
I've got
one off. Fire
one off. And this also takes care of my quote-unquote future hot take, which is pertaining to 2026 or 2025 and beyond. I will say this, and this is my hot take. It's going to start us off real nice and spicy. Williams next year will have a podium for both Albon and Sainz.
that's aggressive. That's
Listen, Todd is speechless, so I know I'm on the right track.
The reason I didn't want to jump in too hard is because my hot take for the like 2025 and beyond thing is I think by 26 or like, end of 25 going into 26, I think Williams will be fighting for best of the rest. So
4th place.
yeah,
Or
essentially.
fifth.
No, best of the rest, like, so Formula 1.5 as we have always called it.
Fair enough.
So there's still going to be the big three or big four, whichever it shakes out to be, like Mercedes, Red Bull, McLaren, maybe Ferrari. Or like, there's always kind of a team in third that falls in and out, right? Sometimes it's Merc, sometimes it's Ferrari, whatever. But I think Williams will be like the best of Formula 1.5 for multiple reasons.
Okay.
But I'll elaborate on if you like to.
I think for me next year, Williams has as competitive of a lineup as we've ever seen in the midfield. I think both of those drivers, if they were in a top 3 team, would be multiple race winners in a season. I also think the fact that they've got that pedigree going for them, and I think we've all kind of made this point in various podcasts in our lives where certain sports are much better when certain teams are relevant again. And I think this is that shot in the arm that Williams needs because you've got a top 5 driver joining a driver who I think is the best of the rest, meaning everybody outside of the top 3 races. So in my opinion, I think Alex Albon is the 7th best driver. And if you're adding Carlos Sainz to that, I think that team can only get better. The expectations are low, which is always critical because if expectations are high, that's when you get called the bust. But because the expectations are still low, I think they're about to sneak up on some people. And that being said, it's one of those things where I think we'll all have a certain gleam in our eye. Like, I was having this conversation with my folks that this Olympics has probably been the most fun to me as a overall event in quite some time because every sport has some sort of inspiring component to it. And selfishly, we're all paying attention from an American perspective. And I think Williams is about to make Formula One racing great again, except without the racist backlash. So that's why I think for me, that is true. What am I thinking? Logan Sargent might still be there. But no, I think it's just that. I think they get 2 competent drivers. Speaking of competent drivers, it's just one of those things that it's a natural upgrade. And I think the fact is they're great drivers, but they're not combative. And I don't think they're ever going to have a disharmony as a group. So that's my armchair prognostication with regards to Williams. But I'll reiterate, I think they're both about to get a podium. I don't know. I may be too bold in saying they'll get it next year, but I think as long as it's the Sainz-Albon ticket or the Albon-Sainz ticket, depending on how you want to look at it, I think they're both going to get at least one podium as partners.
I want to follow up because you just kind of alluded to it in the Sainz-Albon or Albon-Sainz. Who's your number 1 by the end of the next year at Williams?
I think they're going to make it Albon just because he's been there longest, but I could also see at the end of the year Sainz overtaking him, so to speak. But then it also goes back to the conspiracy theory we're thinking of. If this is literally a bridge deal to get Sainz to Audi, then there's no point in making him number 1, especially if he's got a short runway. So I think it is going to be Albon.
And the deal is officially like 1 year plus
1. Yeah, like a rolling
right?
+1,
yeah.
I believe. And I mean, depending on which amateur Instagram accounts you want to follow on Formula One, or rather who just show up on your feed, there seems to be some sort of scuttlebutt that there is a provision in his clause that if a top 6 role opens up and he wants it and they give it to him, he can walk off the contract. So I don't know if I buy into that, but I think it breaks nicely for him. I just think they're going to be a very competent team, and we always talk about the fact that sometimes the best teams are the most competent teams, and by best I mean they're the ones that are going to consistently overachieve. Whether that be getting podiums, or in this case, to Tadzie's point, they'd be the best of the rest. They'd be that Formula 1.5 champ.
I mean, the Formula One fan in me wants you guys both to be absolutely right. I would love to see Williams, as we've said in the past, I would love to see Williams competitive again. The Lando Norris fan in me, who listeners might recall, my hot takes were Lando getting a win for like 60 straight races until he actually did. Speaking of
existence.
Yeah, so I guess maybe I should throw Williams on as my first hot take, but I'm gonna actually hold on the Williams hot take. I'm gonna actually say before the end of 2026, Fernando Alonso retires.
Retires in what sense? Could you?
In like something happens and he just no longer has a seat to drive at Aston Martin, and I have no idea how Aston Martin will navigate the next couple of years, because every time we talk about it, it's like, well, when is Stroll going to let Stroll go, right? Like, Lance Stroll's not a strong enough driver, in my opinion, like to continue to be handed the keys to the car, so to speak. But if your dad's running the ship, then he's probably going to give you the benefit of the doubt as long as he possibly can, and even beyond. So I think either 2026, new rules, new regulations, new cars, all of the above. It's either like Lance is out and Aston Martin starts fresh with 2 new drivers, or it's Alonso going, what am I doing here? I'm out because I don't want to wait. I don't want to continue to be like,
wait.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I ask you a clarifying question? When you say retire, and we know this is Fernando Alonso we're talking about, will this be his final retirement, or do you see him coming back like in 2028?
I think final retirement. I think
then it's bordering into that hot take episode that we like.
Yeah. I don't mean like he retires and then comes back and drives for like Sauber or something, because I just don't see that happening. There's too many young, talented drivers out there, and he's getting to the point where, even though like we've had the conversation about him many, many times, and I know Todd's thinking about this right now, where it's like he's one of only 3 drivers that have a championship on the grid. 4, 3, 4, 3. But at some point or another, it doesn't really matter if you had championships because it was so long ago, right? It's not like he's been competitive in the last 5 seasons. And we could throw that on Aston and whomever else. But, like, if you give him Max's seat at Red Bull, yes, of course he's going to be competitive. Are you going to give somebody who's
44?
Yeah. It just doesn't make sense from a Formula One team's perspective, in my opinion. I think they've got to start going younger to start to build a legacy with these guys. And I think that Aston's in like a really tough spot because their young future is, Lance Stroll. And I just don't think there's a realistic evaluation of his skill set and what he brings to the table. Because the only thing I can see that keeping Alonso in a seat is the advertising dollars. It's like we talk about with everybody, right? If they can bring money to the table for the team, then it doesn't really matter if they don't win, so to speak, because they can bring in, it's like Checo, right? We talk about Checo bringing in millions of in revenue for the Red Bull team. I just don't see Alonso doing that at this point in his career. I think his fans have aged out even, it's like we're fans, but are we really watching him and excited about him? Yeah, when he sticks his nose in somebody else's business, of course we are. But like, normally we're looking at Lando, we're looking at Piastri, we're looking at like the younger next generation guys because we want to see them start to like fight through and end up on the podium.
That's an interesting one because like I could see that happening, but the only reason I could see that happening is Fernando is like not shy about quitting a team. Like he blew it up and walked away from McLaren. He took a year off, came back to Alpine, blew it up and walked away. Went to Aston Martin. And like, I think he's trying to take that angle that we talked about, like that ambassador thing. He wants to set himself up for being around Formula One forever, still making millions of dollars or whatever, however much it would be for a long time. But I honestly don't think he will leave that car. And we know that the Nepo baby's not going anywhere. So, like, as long as there's not a severe deficit to Stroll, I don't think he's going to leave that car. I don't see him going anywhere else because I think he knows that it's, like, his final ride or whatever. But if it does happen within the next year of him leaving the team, it's to another team, and he's blowing it up and walking away, not retiring. And he's not going to – I don't think he would go to another team to retire within the next year is my point. Because you said by 26, right?
Yeah, like end of 2026 season, I think he in whatever fashion, he's done driving.
Yeah. That's a hard one because it could happen. Like, so, if he doesn't blow it up and walk away, I think he's still driving for Aston by like 27, 28. Like, he'll drive until he has a severe deficit to Stroll, which
I don't think is going to happen in this decade.
Will he? Yeah, I mean, like, in Stroll's defense, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, he's having like a quietly good season for the last, I don't know, 6 or so races.
Yep.
Like, he's beaten Fernando on pace on like a few of those races. So, and they weren't wet. He didn't have that whole like Rain Man moment in the wet.
I see what you did there. Well done. I will say this. For me, everything Aston Martin-wise is conditional on if this rumor is true and they've secured Adrian Newey's chances. And I'll go as far as to say, not necessarily a hot take, Adrian Newey coming in is going to lead to one of the drivers leaving. And I have a feeling it might be Lance, because that is a sign of credibility. That is a sign of authority. That if you are able to get Newey I don't think is coming for Nepo baby glazing, as I would think. Like, that man is there to build championships. Almost, Todzi, not even close.
What the fuck is a Nepo baby glazing?
You know what a Nepo You know what a Nepo baby is, and you know what glazing is.
It sounds so wrong together. Fuck. Sorry. Continue.
Okay.
So you think your hot take is Newey, if he goes to Aston, means one of the drivers is out?
I'll put that. I guess I can use that as one of my hot takes if I'm struggling for one. Because I just think this. There are adults in the room and there are kids in the room. And by Adrian Newey coming to Aston Martin in this situation, that's an adult in the room. And that only signals to the other adults in the room, like, hey, we're actually doing something now. Like, I know Lance has been good, but come on, man. Like, that man, at best, should be a reserve driver.
Well, he's better than, I don't know, the bottom.
How many drivers on the grid, if I said their names, would you say Lance Stroll is better than? And, like, is he a top 12 to 15 driver?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's probably 14 or 15 to me.
Which...
And that's on a good day, to be honest. Like, that's just my gut feeling of him. Like, I'm being totally judgmental.
Yep. And I think I'm probably the biggest apologist out of the three when it comes to Lancifer. But I think on his day, he can be flirting with top 10, 11, 12. I don't think he'll ever win a podium again, if he hasn't already. But he is in that...
He's currently P10 in the driver standings for this year.
And I think he's going to stay at P10. I don't think he's going to fall out of that, and I think that is a accomplishment. To say you're the 10th best driver in the world is saying something. And I know he's our favorite meat shield, or I guess what's a Canadian meat? Poutine shield? But... Tab,
Okay. No,
what is your
continue.
hot take? Because I kind of snuck one of mine in there, so we need to go back to you.
I still think somehow, some way, Checo continues to shit the bed, and he's gone. Or there's a new driver. I know that they confirmed that he's through the rest of the season and that he has a contract through the end of 25. I think we have a new driver.
Over under Mexican GP. Because if he can't make
I still think it's possible that we have a different driver than Checo this year.
If he can last through Mexico, he's lasting through the year.
Wait, how many races are... Let's look at the schedule.
Look at
how
the
many
schedule.
races...
A staple of everyone's favorite sports podcast and sports radio. Look at the schedule.
Look at the schedule.
I mean, that's actually like an interesting idea, though. I don't think that Red Bull gets rid of him before Mexico. I think he could be let go after Mexico.
Really?
Depending on when that is. Kind of to Todd's point, I do think that Mexico isn't the last race, right? There's two late.
But usually,
Second to
historically...
No. So it's well, I'll just run off the rest of the schedule so we have it.
Sure.
Next race we have Zandvoort, followed by Italy, small break, and then in September we have Azerbaijan and Singapore. October we have
Awesome.
U.S., Mexico, and then Brazil is... November is Brazil, Las Vegas, Qatar, which I just learned how to say in the last World Cup. And Abu Dhabi is the last race of the season for first week of December. So there's still 4 races after Mexico.
Yeah.
Do you see, at that point in the schedule, Red Bull, from a constructor's perspective, being so far ahead that they could easily worm in a driver change? Or do you think the constructor is going to go down to the last race of the year?
That was my other hot take.
Oh, I teed you up brilliantly.
You sure did. My other hot take is that the drivers is, I think, pretty much all but sealed. I don't think Max will stumble enough. We need like a bunch of McLaren 1-2s with Lando being the one in that scenario. And 2, maybe 3 DNFs from Max now to even have like a driver's fight. But I think the constructors is going to come down to the wire, especially with Checo's current performance and McLaren being consistently fast, which I think is proven to not be a fluke. So I think we're going to get, I would say within maybe 10, 12 points, it'll be decided this year, the constructors.
Are you willing to go out on a limb and say who is going to be the beneficiary of that 10-point lead?
Oh, I still think it'll be Red Bull just because it's so hard to fight from behind. But who knows? All of the Newey leaving shakeup, the Jonathan Wheatley leaving, maybe there's more turmoil going on behind the scenes that's going to fuck with their car development, that they won't have much going forward. So it's possible, but I still think because they have a pretty significant lead, I think it's 100 or so, or maybe 80 at this point.
Okay. Over under 1.5 podiums for Checo between now and the end of the season.
Well, it's actually less. Podiums. Under.
So you don't think he's going to get more than 1 podium from now until the end of the year?
I would say 1, yeah.
So if you're Red Bull, do you think if I tell you that and you do your internal mental math, does that result in a constructor's title for you because Checo only wins you 1 podium? Because I don't think it does.
It definitely doesn't. They're only 42
points.
Yeah, they're only 40-ish points away, 42 points away from McLaren right now, ahead of McLaren right now. And every week, every race, Piastri and Norris seem to be
biting into it.
Yep, taking. So here's my hot take. I think Checo podiums in Mexico.
Okay.
But I still think that they let him go before the end of the season.
Oh, that's even okay.
That's a muy caliente.
That's literally trying to get like anthrax mailed to them on their way to Brazil after Mexico. Like,
I'm just basing this off of my experience with good old corporate America, and I know Red Bull is not a American-based corporation, but I think they are equally as cutthroat as all these other money-hungry companies out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it would only make sense for them financially to keep Checo around and then have some sort of, whatever reasoning, right? Like
I doubt it's in his contract that the Carlos Slim, the Telcel money ties into the Mexican GP specifically.
Oh yeah, totally.
I doubt it does, but they would have to do some serious gymnastics to keep that relationship going. If they dropped him at Mexico, like they would literally have to probably announce it that this is his last race prior to the race weekend, because if they didn't do that, they would literally have trouble. Like, it's going to leak out in the paddock, and they would probably have armed guards to get out of Mexico after that.
I mean, I don't know that it happens right after that. Maybe it happens another race down the road or something. I'm just saying, Checo historically has been incredible in Mexico. There's no doubt in my mind that he can get a podium or even a win. And that's also why I think it's still not enough to save your seat kind of mentality from Red Bull. And I'm not saying they're going to line it up ahead of time and set themselves up for
success.
Yeah.
Can I ask, what is Checo's current point total?
It's a good question.
And where is he in the driver's standings? Because if I remember, I'm going completely off the top of the dome piece. Is he P6 with
P7?
P7? Has he
behind Hamilton?
Broken double digits?
Russell.
He's 131 points.
Okay.
He is 19 points behind Lewis Hamilton in 6th.
I don't think he's going to score more than 50 points for the rest of the year. I don't know if that's a hot take enough, but I don't think he's got that in his locker anymore.
Yeah. He would need multiple podiums to get into that range.
To get 50 more points, right? Let's say this. Let's say we do the math. We're going to give him the one podium. Do you want to give him a second place or a third place?
I think it'll be like a P. So it's funny that you mentioned it. You could even win in Mexico, Nick. You said that?
Yeah, he could. Totally.
I think that would, because Max is such an asshole, that'll motivate him even more to do well in Mexico. He's like, I might lose to somebody else, but I'm not losing to Checo. I'm going to blow Checo out by 10 seconds in Mexico.
So do you think Checo's kind of got a reputation similar to Charlie from It's Sunny in Philadelphia, where there's just certain work that's Charlie work, and he's like, a Checo loss counts twice as much now because of how far he's fallen?
Yeah.
Or
that's
does Max get so frustrated because Checo shows up in Mexico and does well that he makes mistakes and makes it actually interesting for McLaren?
You mean for the Drivers' Championship battle?
Yeah. I mean, how crazy would it be if Max ends up having to actually battle McLaren down to the final races because somehow Checo is in his head?
Maybe. I just don't think he cares. Checo is such an afterthought to Max.
At this point, I agree.
You know how when Hamilton and Terry were 1-2 for pretty much all of 2019?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much most. It was 2019 or 2020? One of those years.
19, because 20
19.
was, COVID.
Yeah, okay. So, 2019, Terry was consistently there the whole time. And he was, he was just a hair off of Hamilton the whole time. Even, on a bad day, he was, P3, right? When Max had a good race.
Yep.
The Checo is so far away removed from any of that Max does, he probably looks at Checo the same way he looks at Lance Stroll or Guan Yu Zhou or just the bottom feeders of the 20 drivers.
They're essentially the human being race car equivalent of flyover country because he's just going to fly past them.
Yes, he doesn't give a other than if they have to work together for a tow in qualifying, he doesn't think about Checo ever.
It is kind of crazy because Checo basically since a 4th place finish in Miami.
This year or last?
This year.
This year.
Okay.
4th place finish in Miami, finished 8th, then DNF, 8th, 7th, 17th, 7th, and 7th. It makes me wonder, I don't know. I realistically, I think Checo is awesome. I would love to see him do better and be more competitive with Max. But I think he's just in the second seat of Red Bull is the worst seat in Formula One, in my opinion. I don't think there's a more stressful place to be, and I don't think there's more of a.
It's not even fairly evaluated.
There's not a more you're just stuck in quicksand in that seat.
You know who would do well in that seat, and you can kind of say this is a hot take, that I think would, with time, be a match for Max in that seat, Chamber of Fear style?
Say it.
Oscar Piastri.
You son of a bitch. That was one of my time.
That dude doesn't care about, he just won the lottery. Heart rate the same. His grandma just died. Heart rate the same. It's he doesn't care.
No.
He doesn't get flustered or sad or
No, we've made the Kawhi comparison. I haven't heard that man laugh, so I'm not going to be full send on that comparison, but it makes sense. And Piastri, to me, is a very interesting one because he's the subject of one of my hot takes, but I don't know if I want to share it on this particular episode, or do we do it in the back half of the segment of what we think the 2026 top 3 driving teams look like. But he is going to be very pivotal because I think where he goes could swing at least 2 constructor titles, because if we think he's going to evolve the way that we think he does, which is he's going to be a top 10 minimum, top 5 probable driver, that's a recipe for success if that's your second driver, let alone your first.
Yeah. I mean, it's a perfect fit. I don't know if we're seeing the whole regime crumble in real time with all of these people leaving and the whole start of the season with Christian Horner's stuff, his thumb picks, whatever you want to call it.
I still maintain they have to keep Checo as part of the punishment. They can't get rid of him until the season's over because of how badly Christian Horner did.
So here's my question. If you run a Formula One team, do you want the best 2 drivers on the grid? Or do you want a number 1 and a number 7?
No, I want a Nico Hamilton situation every year.
Chamber of Fear style.
No, I don't want Chamber of Fear style.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood Chamber of Fear. You want competitive, go at each other's throats.
When I say Chamber of Fear style, I reference back to early 2000s Ferrari when Michael Schumacher was there, and Ross Brawn was leading. He was the team principal at that time. But it was very much known that, it was almost like a mafia style. If you screw up a pit stop,
you're done.
They're going to find your body in a river kind of thing. Obviously not really, but that's how it was treated.
As long as it's not the sign.
It was definitely raining through fear. And so I think Red Bull is very much that now.
Okay.
And that's why I was saying, like, one of the few drivers that would do well in that situation, because Max, we know, is a robot.
But Oscar is a robot in a different way, in terms of he doesn't get too high or too low, like you're saying.
Yeah.
I'd also love to see Fernando Alonso in that seat.
I think that's the chaos element that I want.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's like having Loki and Thor in the same team race team.
No, I just think it's two Loki variants that both think they're the only Loki variant that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe multiverse style, two Lokis.
Okay, so Piastri, I think, is going to be the segue I'm going to use for my next hot take, which is we will see a driver swap in 26, the start of the 26, where we will see Oscar Piastri straight up swap for George Russell.
Wait. You think Piastri goes to Merc, Russell goes to McLaren?
And the reason why I say that is I think Kimi Antonelli is about to eat George Russell's lunch. That's my other hot take. I can proudly say that I'm all in on Antonelli. I've never seen him in a race, but I've seen George Russell in races, and he doesn't look like a number one. And I think he needs an environment where he can be pampered and he can be bought out. And granted, you're putting him in McLaren, but I think he's smart enough to know that, hey, maybe I've got a fighting chance with Lando, but I'm not going to ruin it that first year and a half because I think Antonelli is going to damage that boy because I think that's how good of a driver Antonelli is. So if you want to give my hot take the fact that I think Kimi Antonelli will be a top 5 driver in his first year, I'll take that as well. But I think the swap is going to happen because I also think Oscar Piastri is smart enough to see the writing on the wall, and I just think he feels if he doesn't play his cards right, he could be a Checo or a Bottas for a new generation.
I just don't see. I don't see Piastri or McLaren changing anything about the trajectory that they're on. That's the reason why I would go against that.
Well, you just mentioned, like, as a team principal, would you want a 1-2 or a 1-7? Like, McLaren, assuming the car keeps staying good,
they're
is
very
the
close
best
to a 1-2
set-up team right now, right?
Yeah.
Like, if Red Bull's trajectory even stays flat at best, or I guess at worst, they're the best poised team to have. Not this year, but next year. If they go into the next year, like on pace with Red Bull,
Yeah.
they're the best team for the constructors. Like they're a shoe-in for the constructors.
Yeah, and I would say my little asterisk to that question would be if you can have a 1-2 like Lewis and Valtteri Bottas or Lando and Oscar Piastri, where the secondary player is equally as talented but less egotistical, then you're in a great spot. Like that is the rainbows come out, gold pot is dumped on your head at the end of every finish team in Formula One.
But go ahead, Todd. Then I'll.
No, I wanted to go back to your Kimi Antonelli thing. So I've watched him in F2 this year, and he's not had a good season.
Right.
Like it's an off thing. Prema's not
and neither is Beerman, right?
Season.
Like both Beerman. And...
Yeah. Beerman's. Oh, he's having better. I think he already had. I think Kimi finally got a win. Beerman had a couple,
doesn't he?
It might be a sprint race, one feature race, but he finally got his first feature race win in the not too recent past. My question is on the Kimi Antonelli thing. To me, and maybe this is his whole like autism thing from the other day, of memorizing sector times from 2014.
Other Rain Man.
He seems more of like a chaos theory Fernando type. Also, his driving style is a lot
Alonso-esque.
Yeah, it does. It reminds me very violent turn in and whatnot. He seems more like that way to me than the calm, like, eat George Russell for lunch thing. So like maybe a Senna to a Prost comparison, like the doctor, the Prost, and Senna's just
the
like
professor, right?
Go for the gap, right?
Yep. But Todd, if I may, like to your point, George Russell is not an aggressive driver. And not only that, he gives big, whiny baby energy, because the minute something happens to him, who's the first one to get on the radio? Did you see that? Did you see that? Or did you see that? What's he doing? And it's one of those things that...
Lando jump start.
Yeah.
That was the biggest fucking hall monitor thing ever. Lando jump start.
I have this theory that the less words you use in a sentence sometimes tells me exactly how angry or how annoyed you are, and he is 1A of the sentence economy theory. And I just think this. Now that you've told me how Antonelli drives, that he's aggressive, that he goes for the Senna gap that you should always go for if you're a world-class racing car driver, I feel even more confident, because I just think Russell does not have the mindset to be long for this world, and I don't know how well he handles adversity. And you, listener, could say, well, he was on Williams for however many long years that he was, and did what with it? Absolutely nothing.
In his defense, and I'm not a big George Russell fan, I do think he's a very competent driver.
Competent, yes.
But I think he showed a level of professionalism that was sorely missed in Williams at the time, and was the only reason that they would be fringed 10th or fighting for 10th on occasion. So I do really actually rate him pretty highly as a driver, but I agree with you that he is very I'm not going to go for the gap. I'm going to if I have a chance to go for the gap and get P1, I'm going to say, no, I don't want to risk the car. I don't want to risk the team's points. I'll take a P2.
Right. And I mean, it's the popular narrative right now in sports, right? Analytics versus gut, or seeing what you see. And George Russell, in my mind, is an analytics driver. He's going to take other factors into consideration, and that's going to impact his driving and racing style. That being said, going back to the Antonelli of it all, what do you guys think would be not necessarily a hot take, but a realistic expectation for him in his first year as would he be 16 or would he still be 17 in his first year as a Formula One driver, as a lot of us have predicted?
Isn't he already 17?
He might have been. I think
they were applying. I think he's 17 now.
So let's say he's 17. What is realistic for him to have a good season and not be considered a bust? Would it have to be Piastri's debut season with McLaren 2.0, or would he have to do slightly more? Because I think there are higher expectations on him than there were Piastri.
There's definitely higher expectations on him. I mean, Piastri, I think, came in a mix of drivers where we were all kind of well, is Logan Sargent going to do something?
He kind of got lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, there was just a lot of... I think Piastri was by far the best driver out of that group, but I think because there were so many young drivers that kind of got a chance all at the same time over the course of that, the last 2 seasons, right? He's only in his second year with McLaren, which... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think you're right, but it was the wave after, right? So it was Albon, Leclerc, Lando, what Russell, do they call him? The Twitch, Russell, right? That was the Twitch foursome. And Piastri was right after that wave.
Not a single power botter between them.
But who we did have?
Did you say power bottom?
I did.
Okay.
Talking about engines.
Yeah, sure.
Who else came in?
So he was kind of right after that wave, and that's why he kind of got stuck in no man's land, being a reserve driver for Alpine for all those times, and then he had the whole I understand, and without my permission, Alpine said I was driving for them. Whatever. My point is, I think he was the last driver to have the same amount of hype as this Kimi Antonelli. Because, Piastri won F3, won F2, did it in successive seasons. So he was there. I put it on the same level of hype as Piastri.
Okay.
I think... Go ahead, Nick.
I guess, to me, it seems like Antonelli's got more hype around him, but
is it because he's autistic?
No, I think it's his age.
I mean, I think it's age.
It's the age first and foremost. If he definitely he's 16 years old, 16 years, 15 days, 2 weeks, and 37 minutes.
I mean, watching that clip, though, like, if you haven't watched that clip, it's on our Instagram page, Exhaust Notes FM. It makes me think that we just can't understand the way, like, true geniuses' brains function.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like he's definitely... Like, I hate to use this terminology, but it's like, I feel like he is on the spectrum, but he's almost on his own fucking spectrum.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild, man. And I think to that point, like, racing is just calculations, right? You know, like, maybe to your point about him, the hard turn-ins like Alonso, maybe it's just a matter of time where he connects those two worlds together. You know, right now it's about his times and keeping track of all those things, but you know, the geometry of cornering and all of that stuff is just going to be second nature to him compared to a lot of drivers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he very well could be Max with like the opposite personality, if that makes sense. Like, Max is like kind of fun loving and has matured in the last year plus, whatever. I feel like he's already the fun loving like Max that we have now. I'm not going to say their talent level is the same because Max is a freak show, and he hasn't. Kimi hasn't like proven that yet. But I feel like young Max and young Kimi, as we're going to call him from now on, could be like the same. We're looking at like a Max 2016-ish thing.
Yeah.
Which I don't think he'll be as aggressive because I think he already has that like Rain Man calculation, like you're saying, like, you know, like you were alluding to, Nick. But I think he will be like a chaotic entry for Mercedes when he gets there. Like, he's not going to eat George Russell's lunch because he's going to do a lot of dumb, weird shit that you wouldn't think a person of his hype level would do.
So,
All right.
So you're saying growing pains, essentially, for young Kimi.
It's not even growing pains. I think he'll think like he was right in doing whatever he was doing.
Classic 16-year-old thinking they're the smartest kid in the room.
Yeah, okay, never mind. He's not autistic. He's just 16 or 17.
I mean,
there you go.
and we joke about this because we had all, at least the three of us in this panel, have all been 16-year-old boys. And in the immortal words of Kanye West, you can't tell us anything when you're 16 because you think you're at the top of the world. Now, lo and behold, this kid is actually probably the most advanced 16-year-old in all of sports because he's about to crash into the highest level of automotive driving.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of that. But
All right. 5 minutes left. We got to do one more hot take each,
okay.
and then we're wrapping this episode.
Okay.
This is the portion that Nick is going to put in the Jeopardy music as we kind of do our final Jeopardy hot take. Just make some thinking faces, some ponderous faces in the camera.
They all came out so
Hot and heavy.
organically from the previous hot take, and I don't have anything to double down on with Kimi.
So, hot take. I'm going to say 2026. Maybe even 2025. McLaren number 1, Ferrari number 2, Red Bull number 3.
So you think the fall off is that sudden?
I think the Red Bull fall off is like a year and a half away.
That's too fast. The car's still right there.
No, but so here's the thing. The things about dynasties is they tend to die in a nasty way. And I could see Red Bull just losing it. And not necessarily losing it like a chip here, a chip there. I just think there's some sort of foundational shattering infrastructure collision that's going to happen that's just going to render them not necessarily back to the midfield, but they are going to be the third person. I don't know if I agree with Nicholas's accelerated timeline, but it's within the realm of possibility. Tell me more, though, Nick. Like, you've made the hot take. Like, color in the lines. You've drawn the sketch. Now color in the lines.
So Honda's supplying engines for Red Bull in 2025, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is not confirmed that they're going to supply them in 2026. Isn't that forward? This switchover is
I believe that is true.
Pending.
Yeah. 26 is the new engine regs, so Ford is supposed to be there.
And you knew what they
26.
say about Ford. Found on the road dead.
Fixed or repaired daily.
Fixed or repaired daily. There's a
I
million.
just
Yeah,
thought
exactly.
V Ferrari.
See, but I think if the Ford deal would have gone sour, it already would have with the whole kind of sweeping under the rug with the Christian Horner dick pics.
Yeah. I don't think it's about the relationship going sour. I think it's more about the learning curve that comes with new. I mean, you're talking about like massive companies having to, and engineering teams having to work together to make this happen, right?
I mean,
The only way I could see that happening though is because when the whole Horner scandal was going on, it was like strongly rumored that if he got booted, that it would be Jonathan Wheatley, who just went to Audi.
Yeah.
It would be the new team principal for Red Bull. So if Horner goes, they're kind of a like rudderless ship. That's the only way I could see it happening that fast.
I mean, they lost Newey and Wheatley already, so
that's my thing.
I don't know what.
But that's what I'm saying.
What ship terminology that is? Did they lose their oars, or did they lose their sail, or like Christian Horner can't be the only person that matters in that organization?
No. But my point is, they still have Christian Horner to keep kind of the kids in bed, so to speak, and they still have a bunch of really smart people that were working for Jonathan Wheatley and Newey, because Newey was mostly just he was like that silent art teacher that would just come by and judge and be like, and then not say anything, but then go whisper to the other teacher's ear and be like, hey, you need to fix this and that. Like, you know what I mean? He wasn't directly involved in car design at a foundational level. He was like, I'm going to put my stamp on it by changing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, but in a sport that's been defined by how well people pick up those imaginary margins and turn them into a winning formula, like that's Adrian Newey's greatness. And I do think this is a symptom we see in other sports, especially in college football, where if you have a really good team, that means there's a really great staff. And I'll use the Alabama Crimson Tide as the example. I think the greatest thing Nick Saban ever did was maintain the length of that dynasty the way not only were his players picked off via the NFL draft, but his coaching staff. And he would time and again figure out the plan, figure out the picture, figure out how to reframe it. I don't think Horner can do that now. I think Horner's got his championships. He's gone through this controversy. And I do think he has a bit of that disease of more where he thinks, I'm the reason why Red Bull was able to do this because I'm the Max Whisperer, I'm the Helmut Marko Whisperer, I'm the Adrian Newey Whisperer. And I just think eventually something is going to happen that he can't figure this out again and again. And you want to call it the Max Kellerman argument against Tom Brady where you're just playing the numbers that eventually he's going to lose and then I'm going to be here and I'm going to tell the world it was me. I was the one that spotted it first, but I just don't keep seeing them because to your point, Todd, yes, they have very smart people in the room, but it's very easy to be a smart person when the spotlight's not on you. That spotlight is about to go on to a brand new group of people, and I don't think they have the ability to adapt to it as quickly. That's going to see Red Bull maintain their duration in terms of how dominant they've been.
Fair. Okay. I just don't think it'll be that fast. The only way I think it's that fast is if Dr. Horndog is out.
Did you just combine Marco and Horner together?
I did.
Okay.
So I guess my one question on top of that would be, what was the last new engine supplier in Formula One? Honda, I guess?
Yes.
And that was, I mean,
2014.
Yeah, but like they basically came in, and it took a few years before Red Bull started winning, right?
Oh no! Remember, they were supplying.
Yeah, they were Aston Martin.
McLaren, I thought.
No, they were McLaren, and that's the infamous GP2 engine from.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
Fernando Alonso. It took them like 8 years to get their engine right.
So that's also my thought on this, right? Like Ford coming in doesn't necessarily mean that Red Bull's greatness continues on at the same level, and that's not a shot against Ford or Red Bull. It's just like it doesn't usually happen as easily as the first year with a new supplier.
Again, it's mostly, as I understand it, as an engine badging exercise with Ford. They're going to give them some resources on the EV side, which, Ford's really known for their electric vehicles. So I just don't see it fall. They basically bought the IP of Honda's engine.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, this is a Red Bull engine now. And now it's we're going to sell the naming rights to Ford and get some support from them on the EV side. So I just don't see it falling off that fast, but you could be right. It could all come crumbling down, and, if you're right, then I owe you a burrito.
All right.
But that was like a really long hot take, so I think that's a good one to end on.
Okay, now I was going to say, Nick, you don't have one that you want to share with us? Because I feel like we've hijacked all the talking.
No, that was mine. That was my...
Okay, I'll end with this one, which won't get explanation in any way, shape, or form. 2026, Alpine will be no more.
That's fair. So will there be 9 teams on the grid then, or will they be repurposed as a different team?
We can talk about it in a future episode with the 2026 regs.
Hey.
Perfect. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace.
Max Verstappen is retiring.
Laters.